The Lunchtime News, now on BBC One with Luxmy Gopal.
Today at 1, energy prices fall to their lowest level for 2 years. The lower energy price cap means the average bill drops by more than £200 a year.
Hopefully, fingers crossed, things are going to start coming down now, which is going to make it a lot more manageable.
Israel says it has pulled out of Gaza City's main hospital after a 2-week military operation. A new hate crime law comes into force in Scotland amid criticism from the likes of J.K. Rowling and Elon Musk. And welcome to Teddy Bear Hospital, a new scheme in Bristol to help children find trips to the doctor a little less scary. Good afternoon. Energy prices in England, Wales and Scotland have fallen to their lowest level for 2 years today, as the regulator's new price cap comes into force. A household using a typical amount of energy will pay £1,690 a year. That's a saving of more than £200. The cap sets the maximum amount suppliers can charge for each unit of gas and electricity, but not the total bill. So if you use more, you'll pay more. Here's our cost of living correspondent, Kevin Peachy.
Spring has arrived in the gardens of this East Kent community centre, promising warmer months ahead.
I love the daffodils.
But locals are still feeling the chilling impact winter bills had on their finances and lifestyle.
It's been quite a harsh winter, and I haven't been able to afford to have the central heating on. So it's been rather challenging, and so I've been using hot water bottles. I invested in a battery-operated vest.
Inside the centre we find Kaz, who's found ways to stay warm too.
Wrap up in a blanket or one of those big snoods that you get now, and big fluffy slippers.
And how paying the bills has been a juggling act.
Some months you rob Peter to pay Paul, and that's just the way it is. And as long as you let people know that you're struggling, but I'm not the only person who's struggling. There's thousands and thousands. Quite a few of my friends are struggling as well, so. But hopefully, fingers crossed, things are going to start coming down now, which is going to make it a lot more manageable with everything.
Manageable because today the cost of each unit of gas and electricity in the home has come down. Energy prices are now at their lowest level for 2 years. But at the same time, some government support is being wound down and other bills, water, council tax, phone and broadband are on the way up. Financial pressures aren't over, they just look a bit different.
That will pay for itself on the energy saving.
That's why this former mining community is part of a project sharing good habits to save energy and money. If you use more energy, you pay more. So Sarah, who leads the discussion, says simple tips are best, even at this time of year.
3 tips would be: 1, your hot water setting. If it's too hot to wash your hands with, your boiler's too high. 2, your drafts from your chimney to your windows and your doors, manage those drafts. And 3, your showers. You need to stick to a 4 minutes. Find a 4-minute song, less Bohemian Rhapsody in the shower. And again, that's £70 a year just on water and energy that you could save.
One water charity has even compiled a 4-minute song playlist, keeping people here and around the country to time and their finances on song. Kevin Peachy, BBC News.
Well, joining me now is our money and work reporter, Peter Ruddick. So, Peter, it's the 1st of April and a lot of changes are coming in for families and businesses today.
Yes, and the government keen to say that overall the changes are positive. So ministers talking today about a nearly £4,000 boost to certain households. Now that figure essentially combines today's lower price cap, so a fall in typical energy bills, and also an increase and extension to the minimum wage. The issue for the government is that also this month, water bills in England, Wales and Scotland are going up. We know local authorities are planning to charge more in council tax. And of course, phone and broadband firms, well, they're putting their costs up too, even for customers who are in the middle of a contract. Similarly for businesses, so we have a boost to some small firms today because of changes in the way they pay certain taxes. But many companies say, look, that just won't offset the higher staffing costs we've got. Now, as ever, there are financial winners and losers. Everyone's individual circumstances will, of course, be different. The issue is, it's not just about question about the financial reality. This is also about the perception. Calculations aside, do people feel that this financial year is going to be more positive than the last?
Peter, thank you. And you can get full details of all the changes happening this week on the BBC News website, where you can find information and help on how to deal with the cost of living. Turning to the Middle East now, after 2 weeks of heavy bombardment, Israel says it has completed its military operation in and around Gaza's biggest hospital, and all troops have left the area. During the operation at Al-Shifa Hospital here in northern Gaza, the IDF says it killed several militant commanders and insisted it was preventing harm to civilians. Hamas officials say dozens of bodies have been found at the complex. Our Middle East correspondent Yolande Knell reports.
Left in ruins. This was once the beating heart of Gaza's healthcare system. But Israel says that it had become a terrorist base. 2 weeks ago, its troops returned to Al-Shifa Hospital for a second time, launching a surprise attack. They say they shot dead 200 Palestinian gunmen and arrested top Hamas figures without harming civilians. Palestinians say many innocents were hurt and killed.
There are so many bodies here. We've been getting them out ever since this morning. It's shocking. We've never seen anything like it.
The fierce fighting entered Al-Shifa's wards and razed homes nearby. Israel's military sees this as one of its most successful operations of the war so far, dealing the enemy a major blow. But critics say it's also a worrying sign of the ability of Hamas to regroup in areas that Israel previously conquered, and it shows the need for a convincing post-war strategy. Questions over how this war is being waged are now bringing Israelis back onto the streets. After the deadly 7th of October attacks, months of mass anti-government demonstrations abruptly stopped in a show of national unity. Now, Israel's political divisions are back on full display. Police turning skunk water on people blocking this main road. Protesters accuse the Prime Minister of putting his own political survival before a deal to bring home the hostages held by Hamas. He denies it.
The calls for elections now, in the middle of the war, just before the victory, will paralyze Israel for at least 6 months. 8 months, in my estimation. They will paralyze the negotiations for the release of our hostages. They will bring the war to an end before the completion of its objectives. And the first to bless it will be Hamas. And that says everything.
Back at Al-Shifa Hospital, Palestinians take in the latest destruction. The battle here is now over, but an end to Israel's longest and bloodiest ever war in Gaza still looks a long way off.
Well, Yolande is live in Jerusalem for us now. Yolande, what's the latest?
Well, this lunchtime we've got more and more reports coming through from Gaza City, and one of those which we can't yet verify is that 2 Palestinian doctors, actually a mother and her son, were among the bodies found at Al-Shifa Hospital. Meanwhile, here in Jerusalem, you've got Israeli anti-government protesters still camped outside the Israeli Parliament building. They say they're going to remain there until it goes into recess later this week. And we've got more reminders of how the fierce fighting in Gaza can potentially spread around this region. There are still exchanges of fire going on between Israeli forces and Lebanese armed groups across Israel's northern border. And the Israeli military says there was an aerial attack earlier on the Red Sea resort of Eilat with no casualties there, but an Iran-backed group in Iraq says it was behind that.
Yolande Knell, live in Jerusalem for us. Thank you. A new hate crime law has come into force in Scotland today, with J.K. Rowling and Elon Musk among its critics. It's now a crime to act in a threatening or abusive manner with the intention of stirring up hatred relating to someone's age, disability, religion, sexual orientation or transgender identity. Well, let's get more detail on this from our Scotland correspondent, David Wallace-Lockhart, who joins us from Glasgow now. So, David, a controversial piece of legislation. What are the concerns?
Yeah, that law comes into effect today, hence the big public information campaign encouraging people to report hate crime. But plenty of critics of this bill, some upset that biological sex is not one of the protected characteristics, concern from some in the police about what this means for workload and what it means for resources, and concerns about free speech, including from some very prominent critics like the Harry Potter author J.K. Rowling. She's concerned for how this will affect debate around transgender issues. She's taken to social media to say freedom of speech is at an end if the accurate description of biological sex is deemed criminal. Now, Scottish Government ministers are stressing that freedom of speech is baked into this legislation, and the First Minister, Humza Yousaf, defending it just earlier today.
This kind of rising tide of hatred against people because of their protected characteristics in Scotland, having this hate crime legislation, protecting people, giving them that protection from hatred, while at the same time protecting people in terms of the freedom of expression, for me ensures that we've got a piece of legislation that will be enacted and implemented in a way that is absolutely balanced.
Now, the Scottish Government are stressing that this law isn't just about clamping down on free speech. They're saying you can still say controversial things, you can still say things that offend people. It's about trying to stop the stirring up of hatred against those protected groups. We're talking about it today because this legislation, which was passed back in 2021, has just come into effect today. I suspect it won't be the last time we're talking about it.
David, thank you. More than 250 patients a week in England may have died unnecessarily last year due to very long waits for a bed in A&E. That's according to a study of NHS figures by the Royal College of Emergency Medicine. The Department of Health and Social Care said it's making progress in reducing waiting times, including adding an extra 5,000 permanent staffed beds this winter to increase capacity. Ministers are facing a potential revolt from Conservative MPs over plans to criminalise rough sleeping. Some Tory MPs are expected to rebel against plans in the Criminal Justice Bill, which would allow the police to fine or move on nuisance rough sleepers. Well, our political correspondent Georgia Roberts is here. Georgia, what more do we know?
Well, around 10 Conservative MPs have so far signed this amendment to this very wide-ranging bill introduced by the former Home Secretary Suella Braverman, who said she wanted to give the police more powers that they needed to tackle crime. And because in this bill there are powers that give police in England and Wales the power to potentially fine or jail rough sleepers who are deemed a nuisance. But there's lots of concern amongst Conservative MPs and opposition MPs too that this could really be quite punitive in practice, and it could, for example, mean that those who are sleeping rough because they have nowhere else to go see themselves punished. And a large amount of Conservative MPs, in particular in the centre of the party, are prepared to vote against this bill if they don't see those changes stripped from the bill, and that will potentially hamper its passage through Parliament and embarrass the Prime Minister. So this is yet another party management problem potentially for Rishi Sunak. It would embarrass him at a time when lots of his own MPs are already questioning his authority. It's not the first time he's had difficulty with a big bill. It probably won't be the last. Now, the government says it's engaging with MPs in the usual way, and it also says that it's spent £2 billion tackling homelessness in the past couple of years.
Georgia, thank you. The Turkish president has described his party's worst ever defeat in the country's local elections as a turning point. President Erdogan acknowledged that his AK party had lost ground and promised not to act against the national will. The main opposition party achieved its biggest victory in nearly half a century. It won in all 5 of the largest cities, including Istanbul. Salvage crews at the US port of Baltimore have removed the first section of the bridge that collapsed on Tuesday when it was hit by a container ship. 6 people working on the bridge at the time were killed. The Coast Guard said a section of the Francis Scott Key Bridge had been cut free and was being transferred onto a barge to be taken ashore. A charity that supports people affected by mental illness has said antidepressants shouldn't be handed out to children simply because there's nothing else to offer. The warning from the charity SANE comes after government data showed 450,000 antidepressant prescriptions are issued to children in England each year. Guidelines from the National Institute for Health and Care Excellence say they should only be given in the most severe cases. Germany has legalised cannabis as the government tries to tackle the black market trade in the drug. Germans over the age of 18 can now grow marijuana plants at home and carry the drug for personal use. The new law remains contentious because of health concerns and questions over whether it will help reduce or increase the illicit trade. Drug laws in the UK mean being caught in possession of cannabis carries a minimum fine of £90. From Berlin, Jessica Parker reports.
It's out in the open. Adults in Germany can now possess up to 25 grams of cannabis in public, enough to make dozens of joints, and grow up to 3 plants at home.
To deal with it, and that's...
While people like Marcel are planning newly permitted cannabis social clubs, not for tourists though, just German residents.
Every gram from cannabis, which goes from the Cannabis Social Club, is 1 gram that's not on the black market.
What do you say to people who say, look, cannabis is addictive and it is harmful, especially to young people?
Everything have dark sides, and you have to know about the dark sides, and only when it's not illegal you can free talk about these dark sides.
But these cannabis clubs in cities like Dresden won't pop up overnight and come with their own rules, exacerbating fears that demand will quickly outstrip legal supply.
We assume that the black market will be strengthened, particularly at the beginning in the chaos phase, when demand will be great because of the signal this law sends. The black market and criminal networks will adapt, and they will also infiltrate the social clubs.
Into the highly secure halls of a medical cannabis grower, who are also seeing some deregulation.
Cannabis will not be a narcotic anymore in Germany. It will be just as any other pharmaceutical product, which makes it much more easier for patients to get it from a doctor and to get it from the pharmacy.
They keep this room at around 23 degrees, but it's also really quite humid. Now, there are 650-ish plants in this room, and they are almost ready to be harvested.
And the psychoactive substance is...
The benefits of medical cannabis are debated, while the relaxation around recreational use has been contentious. This is an argument in Germany that likely hasn't yet reached full maturity. Jessica Parker, BBC News in Dresden.
Now, a trip to the doctors is something that can be a bit frightening for some children, or for any of us really. Medical students from Bristol University have been helping primary school pupils by teaching first aid using teddy bears. The children also learnt some potentially life-saving skills, including how to apply a bandage. Our reporter Harriet Robinson has been to one of the classes.
This is Teddy Bear Hospital, and these children are learning how to put bandages on their injured fluffy friends.
We're having a lot of fun.
All the kids were so excited about it. They were so engaged. We had so much fun. We learned loads of stuff. It was really, really good.
The sessions are run by medical students from the University of Bristol to make any potential hospital trips a little less scary and to teach these Year 1 and 2 pupils some basic first aid.
Teddies are useful just because it's something that children are really familiar with, and it's quite common in hospitals and doctors to maybe put your stethoscope on a teddy first to show a child that it's not going to be painful and what's going to happen before it happens to them.
As well as learning how to put bandages on and make slings, they also get to listen to each other's hearts using a stethoscope and learn more about different parts of the body.
I was listening to my friend Darlo's heart. I like doing that.
Kate said they're told the children often go home and tell their parents all about what they've learnt.
although at the time it can sort of look a bit chaotic and like there's lots of things going on, I think they tend to actually pick up quite a lot from it.
Hearts don't actually look like a normal heart.
What do they look like?
They're kind of looking like a blob.
Did you learn how to put a bandage on? Were you good at it?
Nearly finished the bandage, you just put it back inside.
Looks like we're in safe hands. Harriet Robinson, BBC News.
Now, a burial crypt close to the resting place of Marilyn Monroe has sold for more than £150,000 at auction. The buyer, a US tech investor, said he had always dreamt of being next to the Hollywood star. One of the actress's dresses also sold for 8 times the asking price. Time for a look at the weather now with Darren Bett. Darren, it's the end of the Easter weekend, but also first day of April. Any April showers to come?
Well, we got some today and there will be more to come as well. March was pretty wet for most of us, except actually in Scotland. And the weather pattern really isn't going to change a great deal through the rest of the week, through the next few days. We're going to keep colder air and a northeasterly wind in Scotland. Much further south, it's a southwesterly wind. That brings milder air, of course, but this is where all the rain is going to come from the southwest. Now today though, we have seen some sunshine around, but we're starting to see a few showers beginning to break out, for example here in Oxfordshire, and those showers follow the rain that's continuing to move very slowly northwards. That rain still affecting southern Scotland, northern England, perhaps Northern Ireland for a while. That's going to peg back the temperatures here. Further south we're seeing the sunshine, but there will be more showers breaking out. Some of these will be quite heavy, temperatures reaching 14 or 15 degrees at best. Those showers that do develop in England and Wales, a lot of them will fade away this evening, but we'll keep some showers running eastwards across southern counties of England. And the rain further north moves away from northern England and from Northern Ireland, coming to rest in Scotland. And the lowest temperatures tonight are likely to be in the northeast of England. After a chilly, wet day, the cloud then breaks as we head overnight. Still got some showers first thing in the southeast to run away. We'll keep a bit of rain in Scotland, particularly in the northeast. Otherwise, some sunny spells for a while tomorrow. Then the cloud builds up and we get the April showers developing. A scattering of showers ahead of some rain coming into the southwest during the afternoon. Temperatures are likely to reach 14 or 15 degrees more widely through the Midlands and eastern parts of England, but again it's colder in northern and eastern areas of Scotland. That rain that's coming into the southwest though is on that weather front there. That's going to push northwards during Tuesday night, and on Wednesday we're left with low pressure over the UK, so that means more wet weather in store. And we're going to find these showers or longer spells of rain moving northwards across England and Wales on Wednesday into Scotland and Northern Ireland. Southern parts of England and Wales may well cheer up a bit in the afternoon with more sunshine. That in turn will give those temperatures a boost. But look at the temperatures in Scotland. We've got some rain, we've got that northeasterly wind, and that of course is keeping it colder. Now these are the upper level winds. This is the jet stream pattern. This is going to be the story really over the next few days. And with that sort of pattern of the jet, you pick up these areas of low pressure and these weather fronts and move them up from the southwest and bring rain northwards. And that's going to be the story again as we head into Thursday. Bit of rain still across northern Scotland in that colder wind. Another band of rain comes up from the south, followed by some showers, and then more rain comes into southern parts of England and Wales. Those temperatures not changing too much. Again, it's milder across England and Wales, but those temperatures will be lower in that colder wind in northern and eastern Scotland. Luxmy.
Darren, thank you. And that's the BBC News at 1. The next bulletin on BBC One is at 6 o'clock this evening. And of course, you can keep up with all the latest developments on the BBC News website. But now it's time to join our colleagues for the news where you are. Goodbye.
Good afternoon from BBC London, I'm Angie George. First, plans for a fan zone near Embankment Tube for the Champions League final have been criticised by local